Hello, welcome to the Bookcast Club. Today you've got me, Jenny, coming from Norwich in the UK, and I am being joined by Abigail Mann, who is a friend of the pod. She's been on a few times. You're in London, right?
I am. South London.
I've got the UK contingent tonight. Abby has joined me to discuss, and she suggested this book. And I went along with it. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. We're going to get into that in a little while. We're going to do our usual recent current reads first. But firstly, I'll get you to introduce yourself, Abby.
Yes, I'm. Well, we have been friends for a long time, and I think I was a teacher when we were first friends.
Yeah.
And then I got chewed up and spat out by the system. And
as we all do.
As we all do. As you did, as I did.
I did, a very long time ago.
And started writing. So I am an author. I do that, and I'm also a creative writing tutor, and I'm currently doing a fellowship with the Royal Literary Fund at the University of Greenwich. So anything to do with words.
Exciting.
I'm a words is my work in a very broad sense at the moment.
I do love the look of your fellowship. I feel like, I don't know whether I'm just getting hazy daydreams of like uni days, but I mean, my uni was like a 70s breeze block. It wasn't like the one you're currently working at, which the campus looks beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
My favourite thing is at lunchtimes to walk past the building that all the music conservatoire students are in, because there's always someone singing opera on one side and like Whiplash style jazz on the other, so it's quite cool to walk through.
Dreamy.
That. Yeah.
That did not happen at Aberystwyth University, but yes, I like to live uni days like that through other people, because that was not what my uni experience was like. So it must be really nice to be on campus as a non-student, but like as an adult, like, I don't know, appreciating it more than we perhaps did when we were actually students.
Yes, definitely. Campuses are such like, there's such rich energy at campuses, and like young people haven't been like jaded by the realities of life, you know. So it's quite a nice energy to be around.
Yeah. So, how many books have you released now?
3, and yes, writing other things at the minute, but yeah, 3 are out in the world.
Before we get into Fourth Wing, which I am excited to talk about, I feel like our conversation could go in all different directions. Let's do a traditional current recent reads.
Okay, so Constanza by Rachael Blackmore. Have you come across this one?
Right, I'm going to have to do a cover check to see if I have.
It's a beautiful cover. It's historical. It is set in, I want to say, 1600s, right? 17th century Rome.
I have not seen this book. That cover is beautiful.
Anything to do with this isn't ancient Rome, but anything to do with sort of Rome, I think I had just been switched off on for a really long time. I never got into the whole, you know, the Greek gods thing and the Roman sort of history. My ancient Rome is not ancient Rome. Rachael Blackmore is somebody that I have coached as a writer in a group as part of the London Writers' Salon. So I think she had nearly finished this book by the time we came across each other, and it came out just a couple of months ago, and it is just one of the most sort of like rich and immersive historical fictions I have ever read, let alone this particular period of time, which I guess correlates with a lot of the stuff that perhaps Maggie O'Farrell might have written in the past. It definitely has that tone to it, where the history is really the least interesting part of it, and it is so richly detailed as is so character driven. And these people's and their stories and the way that they speak and the way that they interact is of its time, but also completely relatable to now. And the story is about this woman called Constanza who has entered a romantic liaison with Bernini, so Lorenzo Bernini, who is a very famous sculptor. So that's like, that part is all historically accurate, and it's the fictional account of the mistress that he cast in marble, and I believe was like the first marble bust to become very well known that wasn't of like a pope or a saint or a historical, military leader or someone like that. So he did a marble bust of his mistress, and then things happen. It was an unconventional thing to do, and it had pretty devastating impact on Constanza herself. And it's a story set in its time, but I think has so many parallels and says so much about violence against women and girls today. And I know that a big inspiration that she had for the story surrounded all of the reactions to and like realities of the Sarah Everard murder. And so this story is really kind of a vehicle to talk about something much wider. And it's just so beautifully written and gripping, really, as it plot paced, just exceptional. And it's a debut novel. So I really, really recommend that. And I hope it reaches a massive, massive audience.
That sounds amazing. I literally want to reserve it at the library now. She's getting very high reviews on Goodreads.
And deservedly so. It's really incredible.
And the cover is really beautiful. If this is the...
Yeah, this is. As far as I'm aware. Yeah, this is kind of like rich umber, kind of yellowy, beautiful background with the bust and depictions of drawings and all of the fruit.
Like vines.
Oh, yeah. That's the UK cover as far as I'm aware.
Beautiful. I kind of want to buy it. So drawn to it. That sounds really good. That sounds like a great recommendation. When did that come out, did you say? Quite recently. I've got it, 1st of August.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that looks amazing. It's given me... God, was it Maggie O'Farrell?
Hamnet.
Cut me. No. What was her most recent book? I think it was Maggie O'Farrell, right?
Marriage Portrait?
Yes. Yeah. It might be just the cover, but the cover of it is giving me that kind of vibe. Yeah, that sounds great. I definitely want to read that.
Yes, do.
I have to bump that up to the top of my list. If I get in quick, I might, be at the top of the waiting list at the library. We'll see. Not have to wait 20 weeks. So I've only got one book to talk about, and I am currently reading it, and it's called Experienced by Kate Young. Have you heard or seen this?
Oh, I've seen the cover for sure.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this, and a friend of mine, actually Mercedes, who's been on this podcast before, we were discussing romance novels and how we like romance novels, but kind of certain kind of romance novels and ones based in reality that are quite realistic. And she recommended this one, which she recommended it as a sort of believable, slow burn queer romance, and it's about May and her girlfriend. Now I keep wanting to call her Betty, but it's spelt Beette, so like it might be Bet. I have no idea. I'm going to call her Betty, and it opens with May suggesting to Betty that they should actually go on a break because Betty's only just come out as gay after years of being in straight relationships, and May is keen that she plays the field, so to speak, and just to make sure that May is in a relationship that she truly wants to be in. And I'm not that far into it, but I'm assuming that it's going to be the kind of trials and tribulations of Betty dating, and she has, I think, just set herself up on all the different dating platforms, which as somebody who's been in a relationship with the same person for like, God, nearing 20 years now, we might even be 20 years next year, I've never encountered dating apps, and I feel like the dating apps in the queer space are a whole like other level of dating app that I won't understand. So it's gonna be interesting. It's supposed to be really good, and I'm enjoying it so far. Yeah, I'll report back. It's meant to be realistic relationship building, not insta love, which
that sounds
tends
good.
to happen. And yeah, so I don't know if Ruth is going to become a love interest, or I think it's going to be fun dating experiences is what's going to happen. So
but cool cover, and I always feel like cool cover romances, I don't know, maybe you can answer this when you have read it. I like there's usually a little darkness involved in the storyline, I want to say, rather than it being kind of like a straight down the line.
Yeah, kind of pitched at a slightly different audience to like traditional romance readers, I guess. So yeah, I'll report back. Yeah, it says Betty's reluctantly on a dating odyssey, a quest to have lots of casual sex with lots of hot women and come back to May more experienced and more certain about what she wants. And now she has a new friend, Ruth, as her dating guide. She can't possibly fail. It's just for 3 months, then she'll be back with May. It's the perfect plan, isn't it?
So we might have like a guide friend come.
Yeah.
What's the phrase? Friends to lovers.
Yes, it might be.
That's what it's suggesting. But see if that follows through.
I will report back.
My second one, because I feel like, you know, when someone says, I actually don't know if I enjoyed it, but I do feel like I feel like I got something. I feel like I got something from it, but I can't say that I enjoyed all of it. But I did read it compulsively. So what does that mean, really?
Okay.
The book is All Fours by Miranda July.
Okay, I've heard of Miranda July, but not All Fours.
So All Fours, it came out recently. I want to say September, and it has done very, very well. I think I read in the bookseller recently that it has sold over 100,000 hardbacks across the world currently, which is huge. Like, anecdotally, I have heard that if a hardback book sells 10,000 copies, that is like blowing expectations of a publisher. So 100,000 is huge. That may be across audio as well, but I mean, regardless, it's only mid-October, so this is only a few weeks of sales, really. I came across Miranda July's short stories.
That's how I've heard of her.
Yes. She has published one novel before, quite a few years ago, I believe, and lots of short stories which are like exceptional, and they're really kind of snapshots of like the interiority of someone's what feels like mundane life, but there is no such thing as like a mundane subconscious, and I think that's what she tackles really well. But this book specifically, All Fours, is I had no idea what it was about. I just really, really resonated with her writing. However, this book is about a semi-famous artist who wants to take a big trip across the country. They've come into a bit of licensing money that they didn't realize that they were entitled to, and want to do something silly with it, really. So she wants to drive across the whole of America and leave her husband and her child at home. She doesn't do that. She sets off on the journey, but she only goes about half an hour away. And then the rest of the novel is essentially the very surprising ways that she kind of completely pivots her entire life in 2 weeks as a result of the menopause. So it goes somewhere you don't expect it to. every single chapter is just, it is completely mad and like completely riveting. And I was reading it every night and struggling to put it down because I was just like, she's not going to do that, is she? And then she does. In like just the craziest ways. And I guess because the protagonist in it is like a performance artist amongst other things, that there is really no sense of convention in terms of what they would consider to be like abnormal behavior, and how much can you kind of justify things that you do in your life as an exploration of creativity, and how much can that be used as an excuse for, I basically, the merging of the personal life and the creative life and the artistic life. And I think it is a really interesting and very confronting and possibly alarming approach to
I know, sounds a bit scary.
someone going through a menopause and what that can do to someone. My suspicion is that it's at the extreme end of things, but I haven't gone through the menopause. So I might be completely wrong, and that everyone decides to or has fantasies of doing what the protagonist in this book does. What I think is the biggest triumph about it is that for so much of the book, she's on her own. And to take a reader on that length of a narrative journey when they are largely in conversation with themselves is, I think, a massive triumph as a writer to do that. But yeah, there was a point about 2/3 of the way through that I was like, wow, I really didn't think I was a prude. And we will probably get on to more of that as we tackle Fourth Wing. But what I think is quite interesting, and maybe this is a bit of an overlap with Fourth Wing, because everyone knows what Fourth Wing is partly famous for.
Do they?
It's sex. Spoiler alert.
Did I?
But what I think is strange is that the way it's written in Fourth Wing, I'm like, yeah, sure. But this, which is probably a far more realistic for many people and kind of gross, reality of sexual exploration in, midlife, I found the reading experience far more unsettling, which says something quite interesting perhaps about the way how palatable we find this kind of topic in the way it's written.
Yeah.
We can continue that part of the conversation.
Color me intrigued.
Yeah, when we get to Fourth Wing. But wow, yeah, there were some things in there that I was like, wow, I can not unsee that image.
Wow. Okay. I've seen this book. When I looked it up, I was like, oh, I recognise the cover of that book. Alice was a big fan of Miranda July. I know she really liked her short stories. So we've definitely discussed her on the podcast before. But yeah, I want to read that one as well. That's too big. You're making my TBR grow.
It's good. I say, especially the first 10 chapters, I must have like mentally highlighted 20 different passages where I was just like, that's it's like poetry on the page, just beautiful. Stunning writing.
Yeah.
And then it got weird.
And then weird sex. Okay. This is where we take a little break to tell you about all the different ways you can support the pod, most of which are totally free. We'll start with our Patreon. We've changed things up a little, making all our bonus content open to everyone, no matter what tier you're on. A more pay what you can kind of thing. Tiers start at just £2 a month, and joining our Patreon will give you access to all our chat on recent and current reads, DNFs, book prizes, what we're watching, and lots more. You could try our Patreon for free today. We highly encourage a binge listen to our back catalogue of bonus episodes, and take no offence if you choose to cancel afterwards. If you love receiving book mail and personalised recommendations, our top tier is still available. We get you to fill in a survey, and then we tailor our book recommendations to your preferences. Find all the details in our show notes. Now for the free ways to support us that make a huge difference. A really effective and easy way of showing your support is by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. There is a link in the show notes that will take you straight to the Apple Podcast page where you can write a review. If you listen on Spotify, you can very easily give us a star rating. You can also share our posts on social media. We're at Bookcast Club on Instagram and TikTok. You can sign up to our newsletter on Substack, where we share even more book recommendations, our pick of the new releases, and all the latest podcast news. But the best way for us to find new listeners is by you telling your book-loving friends and family about us. However you choose to show your support, we, as always, want to say a huge thank you. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners. So I'm going to do a little introduction to Fourth Wing. It probably doesn't need introducing, but I feel like you either know about it or you really don't know about it. So, I'll do a little bit of spiel. So Fourth Wing is a 2023 new adult high romance fantasy or romantasy novel by American author Rebecca Yarros. It is the first book in the Empyrean series, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, and achieved viral success on TikTok, which is why we chose it. We wanted to do a TikTok book episode, and Abby suggested Fourth Wing, so here we are. We follow Violet Sorrengail, who, despite initially training for, or like in life, training for the Scribe Quadrant, is mandated into Rider Quadrant by her mother, General Sorrengail. Despite the fact that her brother died whilst being a dragon rider, she is assigned to Fourth Wing and must face various trials and tribulations to ultimately become a dragon rider. And I'm going to leave it as that brief description because I feel like we're going to get into detail on this one. We haven't pre-discussed this. We've literally saved all our thoughts for this episode. I have to admit that I did have to reread the Wikipedia summary of the book because it's a big boy. It's long, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 600 pages or something. I listened to it on audio, so
As did I.
It's a good 22-hour audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot happens in it. So I definitely had forgotten some of the plot. I'm not entirely sure that matters, but we'll get on to that. Should we just start with what you initially thought of it?
Initially, I thought it was absolutely terrible. Straight out the gate. I was listening to it and I thought, I don't even know what made me choose to read it in the first place. I think I was like, I haven't read a fantasy in a while. I asked a friend of mine who writes and reads a lot of fantasy what a recommendation was, and she was like, your entry level is either Fourth Wing or A Court of Thorns and Roses. One's got dragons, the other one's got fairies, and I thought, I'm not sure I'm ready for fairies yet. I did go on to read that. My personal opinion is that Fourth Wing is much better.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But, I'm going to take a dragon over a fairy. Just case closed. I first started listening to it and I thought this is some A-level writing, like we're getting exposition. We're getting these kind of hackneyed expressions of, but I didn't want to fight the dragon, but I didn't want to train to be a dragon rider. I want to read my books and be left alone, and I hate you, Mom, that kind of stuff. And I'd say it took me 22 minutes to do a complete 180. And I was like, I'm here for it all. I'm here for the cadets. I'm here for Battle Brief. I want to know who's going to bond with which dragon. I was so in. Like, I was listening to it. In like, if I had 30 seconds spare, I was listening to it. I absolutely loved it in the end.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I was expecting that. So, I kind of knew it would not be great in terms of the writing because I had heard that Sarah on this podcast is probably a good example of somebody who would not recommend Fourth Wing. She hasn't read it either, and she wouldn't. As somebody who reads a lot of fantasy, I think she'd really be quite angry reading it. I've written writing. We've got our notes in front of us, and I've written the writing as something to discuss. I went on a slightly different journey with it, in that I was quite prepared for the writing to not be great. And I just let myself sink into the story. And I was into it from the start. I thought it was good fun. The dragons came along, and when the dragons first come in, I was like, this is brilliant. Like, the dragons are great. It takes a turn about halfway through. And I was like, I'm not enjoying this listening experience anymore. And we'll go on to talk about the sex in the book. But it made this shift, and I was like, I don't need this in my ears, to be quite frank. And listeners of this podcast will know that I quite like a sex scene, but we'll go on to talk about the sex. I have got some comments to make about the writing. I think you can lean into it. That's what I'm saying. Like, just go with it. Is this a spoiler? It is written in first person, right? From one character's perspective. For the majority, like the 99% of the book, it's written from one person's perspective. That's quite hard going. After a while, is what I found. And like you were saying, the writing is fairly basic. If it was a script in a film, it would be awful. Like, if it played out on camera with her thinking and saying what she's saying, it wouldn't work. If they make this into a film, which I think they're going to, a film or a TV series,
I'd be very surprised if it hadn't.
It isn't.
Didn't have the rights been sold, but it will have to have a ginormous budget. But I don't know. I feel like the style of speech, the interactions between these characters, the way that they've been written, is almost intentional in the way that, like, Emily in Paris is written. You know, it's not high fantasy in the sense of, like, you know, lyrical prose and complicated personal histories. It's, you know, hey, I want to bang you. Do you want to bang me? You know. And if you want to spend some time, you know, the uncomplicated hormone fueled world, then sure. Yeah. Like, I came across a phrase, this is going to make me sound so old, from a young person. I came across a phrase from a young person where they just said, it's not that deep. And I was like, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. And it's, if you go into it thinking it is going to be more deep, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you want to eat some popcorn, eat some popcorn. This is literary popcorn.
Agreed. And that is probably why I was enjoying it for a good first half of it. Yeah, I've made some notes here. Every now and again, she throws in a few, like, oldie worldy English words, like thrice. I was like, oh, that was quite random out of nowhere. Like, they talk like, I don't know, like, I don't know teenagers in this day and age, but I feel like they talk like, you know, they live in 2024. And so, just to remind us that maybe this set back in dragon times, she uses the words thrice. This is the one that got to me, listening to it over and over again. She says gods all the time. Gods. Gods. I have gods. I was like, I can't anymore. Who talks like that? So, yeah, you have to lean into the writing, because otherwise it will annoy you the whole way through. So, like you say, it's like, it's popcorn literature, and that's what go into it like that, and I think you might enjoy it. What else have I written here? Eyes. She loves to talk about eyes. They either have soft brown eyes, onyx eyes, glacial blue eyes. I was like, right, okay. One, I don't really need to know what eye colour they have, but do you really need to, like, name loads of different shades of blue? It was the writing was interesting, but I did find it fun. Like, I was like, oh, that's quite funny.
It is fun, and I think anything that lends itself well to parody is, especially in, like, this area, is probably doing itself a favor. Like,
yeah,
I've seen, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, like, the social media algorithm knows that I don't know what you call a fan of a fourth winger. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. They've probably got a name.
They probably have got a name. And someone has done a really excellent parody of Violet, who is like, I'm just so small and weak and feeble. Why do I have to fight all of these other people? I'm just going to bond with the biggest and strongest dragon, but can I just remind everyone that I am small and weak and feeble? And I did find the descriptions quite interesting in that when I was like looking up the book afterwards, and I read an interview where I think Violet had Rebecca Yarros was talking about how she had written Violet to coded as having a particular
let me look up the
syndrome that I didn't pick up on, and whether that's because I was not being a very attentive reader or listener in this case, or whether it wasn't there as much as it should have been, because I am far from I wouldn't describe my physical prowess as something that anyone would envy. And yet I still feel like if I was really hench, I was doing the kind of battle training that they're doing and getting like repeatedly punched in the face, I'd probably have as many injuries as Violet Sorrengail. I didn't think that was written in maybe as much as she thought it might have been.
Well, she thought it was. I had the same thought. So I think Rebecca Yarros suffers from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I had a friend that I used to play korfball with that suffered from it, and it causes like extreme hypermobility, which means you're more prone to injuries, along with other physical conditions as well. I didn't get that from this book. I think you're right. I think she maybe feels like she's built it in more than perhaps she has, and I think she could have been explicit with it, actually. I don't know whether she's hindered herself by... I don't even know when the book is set, to be honest. Like, it is not clear. I don't know whether she's hindered herself by kind of almost making it sound like it is set in ye olden days, and therefore this syndrome wouldn't have been, I guess, known. But yeah, this is from Wikipedia, saying that Rebecca Yarros suffers from the condition, and although it's not specifically named in the novel, Yarros has confirmed that Violet canonically has the syndrome, which is interesting.
I just thought the kind of, it is extremely violent at numerous points, and maybe that's something to point out, that I think new adult as a genre is really interesting because it can really kind of reach down to maybe 15, 16-year-olds and reach up to, I guess, whatever your upper limit is for someone who would naturally lean into this kind of fantasy. And I think it's not necessarily to do with the content, but more to do with the generation of people who grew up with fantasy as teenagers. So really kind of, you're looking at the Harry Potter and Twilight generation, who are now in their late 20s up to mid 40s, I guess, who this book kind of lends itself to, because it's of that genre, but the subject matter is a little bit more challenging and explicit and confronting, perhaps. And so you've got that kind of demographic of people who have read this and that's perhaps why it's kind of in this new adult space. But the characters are all kind of in their early 20s. In terms of like emotional depth, I think that's the bit I have a question mark over. It's got the violence, I think, that justifies that age categorization. The sex does as well. The complexity of the world building, I wouldn't say is specific to that, but it's the characters in the way that they interact and develop that I'm trying to be really diplomatic.
No, it's fine, because one of my questions because this book hasn't answered it for me, is what is new adult? Because to me, this read as a YA novel, as in like you say, that I'd say the depth of the characters and how they talk and how they develop felt very YA to me. Yeah, it's very jarring to then read the sex scenes in it. Yeah, I guess the violence I hadn't noticed particularly, maybe because I'm thinking of like the Hunger Games was quite violent as well, but that is YA. So yeah, I'm very confused about this new adult space. I don't know what new adult is, I have to say. What makes it new adult? Because I am not clear, other than maybe thinking it was the age of the characters. But
I think it's the age of the characters. What you are then permissible as the author to have them do. But I think specifically new adult is a genre that has emerged as this age of readers has entered that time period of, being in their mid-20s. So I don't think like new adult as a genre would or could have existed 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah,
and maybe it's going to shift again in the future sense. When young people who are reading now reach that age. Are they going to want those things from a genre? Will the new adult genre still exist? I think it's specifically this generation of new adult readers that these books are serving.
Yeah, interesting.
And I don't think that they are hardcore fantasy readers. I mean, from content that I have been seeing, I deleted TikTok fairly recently because I was just like not living in reality anymore.
No.
But
it'll do that to you.
But the fantasy book talkers on there, they're not recommending Fourth Wing. They're not really recommending. A lot of them are recommending A Court of Thorns and Roses, but the ones who are like hardcore fantasy lovers are not. This is not in the same. I wouldn't even think they would say it's categorized in the same way. This is a really specific, I think, crossover, a straddle, if you will, between like the fantasy readers and perhaps the romance readers who have come to expect far more explicit content, and this is like the solution to both of those things. Not that the author has written with that intention in mind, because I just don't think it's possible to write to market in that way, but that's possibly just what we're seeing at the moment.
Talking of Rebecca Yarros, I made the very unfair assumption that this was like a self-published novel that had gone viral on TikTok. It's not. She's a prolific writer. I don't even know what number book this was in her like back catalogue, but she's written a lot before Fourth Wing. She's written books in between Fourth Wing and Iron Flames, the next one, right? She's prolific. And if you look at the covers of her other books, I'd say she's probably been writing in that kind of romance genre, the like sexy romance genre, for quite a long time. There's lots of naked men on the covers and that kind of thing, which doesn't surprise me. And I think she's maybe tapped into a whole new genre here of people that want that. They kind of want the smutty side of it, and they like the dragons because the dragons are cool.
The dragons are cool.
They're very cool. So this again was Mercedes. She was like, don't read books with dragons. Dragons are wankers. I was like, you would definitely find the dragons in this book to be wankers, because they're very wanky dragons. They have too much to say quite often.
I did struggle with that to begin with, actually. When the dragon started talking, I just thought, I can't. We're doing talking dragons? We're doing Smaug? No.
Yes. You need to lean into the talking dragons, as you're not going to get on with this book at all.
Yeah,
the talking dragons. I did enjoy the dragons, and I loved the bonding bit, actually. So the dragon riders, I don't know, get thrown out into the wilderness to go and bond with a dragon. I don't know if they're wandering around. It wasn't particularly clear. I think they're wandering around just like trying to find a dragon. And Violet Sorrengail is the first dragon rider to bond with two dragons, not just one. So although she's weak and feeble and can't ride a dragon to save her life,
she rides a dragon to save her life.
She does, actually. Yeah, she has to have a seat made so that she can sit on the dragon. which everyone else is so big and strong that they can go. What's it called? What's it called when you ride a horse
Bareback.
without a saddle? Bareback. That's it. They could go bareback on a dragon. But not Violet. Yeah, I loved the dragon bit. Like, and I loved the bit with them bonding and her finding her dragons. And I don't know if we're progressing on to the sex bit now, but I'm going.
We can do that.
The bit where the bit that changed what there was a hint of sexiness in the book, like right in the start. Made a little note because I had my notes open while I was listening. I made a note very close to the start of the book. Wow, sexual reference early doors. It was something to do with, it was quite coded, but it was something to do with an erection. So I was like, okay, interesting. Then there was no sign of sex at all until, like, they were having conversations, quite teenage conversations about sex. That was fine. It's all good. Halfway through, they've all bonded with their various dragons, and I think the dragons are having sex.
Correct.
Right? So the dragons are having sex. Her love interest in the book is bonded with a dragon. It all gets a little bit complicated. So he's bonded with one dragon, she's bonded with another. Those dragons are mates, and therefore they as people are linked through their dragons. And so the dragons are having sex at one point. Which
we don't see this on the screen.
We don't see this happen.
But we understand that is happening because basically they're human bonds. Counterparts, yeah. So in this case, Violet and Xaden Ryerson just get really horny. I want to bang. Which, if that moment had come sooner, you would think this is no.
Yeah, maybe that's why it came so late. Well, it didn't come late. It came like halfway through a 600-page book. Yeah, I might have given up sooner. If that had happened in the first 200 pages, I'd be like, oh no, this is not for me. Don't mind the dragon sex. It was the randiness because your dragons are doing it that I was like, oh god, they got very lusty very quickly.
That also means that they have like almost like a telekinesis between them. So ordinarily, dragons do not speak to humans, but because their dragons are in a long-term committed relationship in Dragon World, the human companions or human counterparts can hear what their bonded dragon is thinking or doing if they are in range. But because their dragons are bonded too, they can kind of indirectly hear what that other human is perhaps thinking or doing. Almost like, I think back in the day, in pre-1970s, people shared phone lines. You had a phone line that came in, and maybe it was you and a couple of neighbours that also shared the phone line, like
listening on the call.
Basically, these dragons who are bonded and they're humans all share a phone line.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, it's by you saying that though, we're a bit all over the place here, but just before we get too much onto the sex, by you saying that, I have thought about the fact that some of the book I just felt like she just made shit up. She just made shit up to make something happen. And like the telekinesis sex thing, I was like, what is happening? You have to lean into it wholeheartedly because you're like, oh, that was random, but I mean, it's kept your plot going, so that's fine. You've just triggered that memory that I remember when I was reading it, thinking she's just writing any old random shit here. She just wants to write it, so she'll make it happen. And then the other thing, so Violet Sorrengail, she like knows the laws of the Dragon World and the school back to front, and I feel like every now and again something would happen, like some random student would kill someone or they'd kill someone outside the rules, and then Violet would be like, oh, that's because of rule 1.2.5 in X book. And I'm just like, you're just making it up as you go along and using that as a mechanism of kind of keeping your plot going, is just for Violet to remember, yes, I remember that rule in book 3 of so-and-so dragon lore. Like, there's a lot of that goes on. So random shit happens all the time for no reason, and you just got to go with it. But yeah, the dragon sex turning the humans on was, I could see where it was going at that point. I was like, wow, okay, I know what this book is. I don't know how I'd avoided knowing that it was so full on with the sex stuff, but I don't know how I'd avoided that. I think I had vague memories of people saying that it was, spicy in places, but I did not know what's coming. And I quite like a spicy book. But from the point that the dragons have sex, I did just feel like I was in a lusty teenager's head the whole time, and I did not enjoy being there. I was like, this is, I never fast forward a sex scene. I had to fast forward some of their sex scenes.
Really?
I did, yeah. I was like, even I'm cringing, and I quite like a spicy sex scene.
What was your issue with it? Because I've got thoughts about I can't remember if it's, I mean, it's not going to be a spoiler to anyone that the two people who are love interests end up banging, but I can't remember if it's the first bang or the second bang or the third bang. But the one that involved like furniture breaking.
Lightning striking.
Yeah. That was it.
So Violet Sorrengail has like this special ability she can't control it for a lot of the novel, but she can like harness lightning power, right? So of course when they have sex, like lightning strikes outside. Like, oh god. No, what I really struggled with, actually, I didn't struggle, it just made me roll my eyes so bad. And I feel like if this is people's first introduction to, I don't know, sex scenes, I just didn't think they were good. They were written like bad pornography is what I felt. I didn't think they were sexy at all. So it was like watching a bad porno film where you're like, this isn't hot, this is just gross. I wrote some stuff down. So this came quite early on when actually all they'd done was kiss, right? So at one point he sucks her tongue into his mouth.
Like a reverse of that scene in Harry Potter where Ron vomits the slugs out.
Ew,
sucking in.
That's not nice, right? That's not. No, is that nice? Is that a nice way to kiss someone? I don't feel like it is. Like, it made me go, ew. And, you know, I've had bad kisses in my life that reminded me of, and I'm like, that's grim. I didn't think that was sexy. That was just the start. So I'm going to have to bleep some of this out, right? I've written curl around his length. That one, okay. I don't need to bleep
What's
that one
curling?
out.
What's curling?
What was curling around his length? I don't know. Didn't make a note of that. Now I don't know what she's talking about. So he really likes her hair, right? Fuck me, this hair. This is the sort of thing I was listening to. I was like, her hair, what are you talking about? Okay, tongues thrust in. Oh, and he did a lot of, oh god, right. We've got swollen. I can't wait to feel you. It's my. I was just like, this is just gross. This isn't.
Okay, so if my suspicions are correct, and that a book that is branded in the way that it is and is termed new adult is reaching readers that are younger, I would 100% have been reading this if I was 14. No doubt in my mind that I would have got my hands on this.
Mm-hmm. What would your mother think if you reading this?
She'd find it hilarious. She would find it hilarious.
She'd be doing what I'm doing now and going, girl, we need to talk about
this is
my friend.
This is my point. We are looking at this from people who are experienced in life, and
lol.
I worry that the depiction of sex, and this is not exclusive to this book, it is worse in A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily in terms of like the depiction of, you know, blow by blow what's happening, but the surrounding possessiveness, verging on violence in sex
It's not good.
that I have an issue with. And I've had conversations with like people before about this who are saying, well, that is part of the fantasy genre. You're not just talking about fantasy as in we're talking about dragons, we're talking about magic, we're talking about lightning. That is part of it. And I'm not sure about that, because
I don't believe that.
when you have got what's the highest or most intense point of a sexual relationship that you can imagine? Every time that happens in this book, and I will say she redeems herself a little in the next book, which you won't have read yet.
I haven't.
But there is a scene that is on the circuit known as the throne scene.
Okay.
And that, I do believe, is a much healthier and much better, in every sense, spicy scene.
Yeah. Okay.
But in this book, especially when they don't know each other, they have not discussed their experiences before. The language is violent. The actions are, although consensual, the norm is the way that I show the intensity of my feelings is for this to at some point end up being painful, or the threat of the loss of control, which is a feature that crops up a lot in dark romance and fantasy, of a bit kind of blamey of the person who is doing the seducing, whether that is intentional or not, that if you continue along this line, I can't be held responsible for what I'm going to do to you. That I just find really, really icky and
That's
really
what,
problematic.
So I'd made all my notes about the kind of like bad porno writing in this, and then I made a note that said, what's his name, Zayden? This is what he says at one point, and I can't. Like you say, it happens more than once, but he says something's gone on. I'm sure he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, if you keep doing that or looking like that or whatever." And then he says, "I don't know if I'll be able to stop myself." And I've written the note, rapey much, and that it does happen a lot. And yes, I agree that there's a subsector of romance and fantasy that has sexual relationships like that, and that's fine, because again, as a reader, you're going into it consensually because you know what you're heading into. If you specifically picked up a book with sex depicted like that, that's fine. We're all into different things. That's not what this book is, and that's not who this book is aimed at, and that's not who's picked up this book. This has been picked up by God knows how many hundreds of thousands of teenagers on TikTok. And I'm like, it does, I feel like, am I being old? No, I don't think so. I feel like it worries me as a mother of a daughter that they would read this and think that that's hot. I'm like, that's not hot. That's rapey, and he should have more control over himself like that. This isn't. Yes, it's consensual. It plays out on the page as consensual, but the thoughts he's having, the stuff he's saying, a borderline rape. To be honest,
I agree, and some might argue that it just ties in with an ongoing theme that runs throughout the book of power and physical domination. So if you take the sex out of it, they have daily sessions on the mat where they are basically wrestling each other to the point of like the other person having to submit. And Zayden was her sparring partner. So considering that context, it doesn't seem quite as bad, but it's still bad. Like, it's still bad. And on the complete flip side of that as well, And I'm pretty, if it's not in Fourth Wing, it's at the beginning of Iron Flame, that he prevents her from having any sort of like physical connection with him. And it's almost like that denial of intimacy that you also hear about as, again, a sign of like denying affection as a way to punish somebody. That is a textbook, you know, emotionally abusive behavior. And that, again, is like not questioned. And it's done under the guise of protection, you know, because I have this big secret, whatever it might be, you can't get close to me because you are not admitting the thing that you need to admit, which is that you love me. And until you admit that you love me, you cannot, I'm not going to physically allow you to be intimate with me or to come near me or to touch me or to seek any kind of affection that is not explicitly sexual. And I think that's the area that I think would really be worth exploring. And I don't know whether it's like just not hot enough or it's not like intense enough, but that so much of like a healthy romantic relationship is like 90% of the stuff that happens like before someone ends up banging, and it's just completely absent. Like there is so little that is not just a complete end of a spectrum of how do you show someone that you care for them. There's a big kind of absence of that.
Yeah, it's now that we've talked about it, I'm like, it is the one side of the book that the rest of it I just thought was fun. Even the dirty porno scenes, I was like, oh, it did make me laugh quite a lot. I was doing the school run, so like walking to pick the kids up from school, like if anybody'd been like, what are you listening to? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I kept, like walking up to the school gates and being like, God, I really hope I actually pause this and don't like start playing it out loud to everybody. Yeah, it's the one bit that I was like, oh no, that side of the book's giving me the ick slightly. It reminded me a little bit, and I didn't like Outlander for the same reason, is that the sex scenes and the sexual relationship between Claire and Jamie in Outlander is quite violent. And yeah, I think you need to know it's going to be like that actually before you go into it. I feel like the amount of people that have raved about Fourth Wing though, like just either don't care or they've skipped over the sex scenes, or I don't know. It did baffle me slightly that it hasn't been flagged more, or at least not in the spaces that I've seen it been talked about.
But then maybe it's because we're not hardcore, fans of this genre, and the people I have spoken to who are just like, this is just part and parcel of what you come to expect in a book like this.
It's always the thing I don't like. I didn't like the Game of Thrones books because the sexual violence in those is really high. Yeah, it makes me a bit sad that if this is how sex is treated in fantasy, I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know. To swing, if I think now, it's been quite a few months since I've finished Fourth Wing. If I think about what about it was just completely addictive, and I think it is just that kind of just rapid pace of the plot, and there is like the lore that is involved in the book, although sometimes convenient, is just, I mean, the end of Iron Flame in particular, jaw drop. Never have I like read a book where I was at the end, I was just like gasping, just like, oh my God.
I mean, the end of Fourth Wing is quite good because considering from halfway until literally probably 90%, I was like, oh God, this book and its sex scenes. And then they stop having sex, which is great. And the ending was fantastic. So I was like, oh, damn it, I kind of do want to read the next one.
Yeah.
It was definitely giving me, I like the Hunger Games books, and it definitely gave me the kind of excitement of thinking, oh yeah, I would quite like to dive into the next one and see what happens. I think this is going to be one of 5, so it's not a trilogy.
It is, and
there's 5 books.
Interestingly, I think for stuff that takes off on TikTok, that then brings people into a big backlist. This, I think, it'll feel like it's slightly different because you've only got 1 and 2. The third in this series is not coming out until January 2025. And I imagine it'll be at least a year until the one after that is done. And I know that Court of Thorns and Roses, I believe, is 7. And
wow,
there was a point where they really took off, and the demand on the writer, I think, just becomes just propulsion of getting ones out. And there is one book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series that is skinny compared to the others.
Just get one out.
That must have been a hard year for you. I think I would have had numerous breakdowns with the demand that comes from something like that. But I mean, all you need to do is search up like hashtags of some of these characters on social media, and you will just be like, wow, people are in this world.
Yeah.
I've seen some amazing like Fourth Wing themed like dinners that people have, parties where everyone comes in like flight leathers. It just like it's got so many like marketable aspects to it that you're just like, I'm in. And everyone thinks there'd be a dragon rider, and everyone knows that there'd just be in the old scribe quadrant, you know. You're going to be there reading some dusty tomes. We're not going to be sparring each other.
I'd be pushed off the parapet like right at the start.
I'd cry, and someone would beat me out of the way.
Trip me over.
Yeah.
To the edge, that's it. I'll be out. Yeah. It's good fun. I didn't not enjoy it. For the majority of it, I always enjoy myself quite a lot. I don't know if I'll read the next one. It's one of those things, you know, when you've watched like really trashy television, I'm like, I just need to not do this again. I watched Married at First Sight Australia. It was like 31 hour long episodes. And I was like, I cannot do this to myself again. So I don't know if I will go on to the second one.
I think you should.
Do you?
I do. I think you should, because, or maybe just look up the throne scene and then see if that.
I just read that scene.
Yeah. And also the ending is phenomenal.
Maybe I'll give it a go when I've got some.
You've got a whole year to consider it before another one comes into the world.
We've been talking for over an hour already. We do have some, at least I've got one quick recommendation of a different book that people could pick up if they enjoyed this one. Did you have some? I
do have a recommendation. Does it have to be related to Fourth Wing?
No, just, you know,
anything.
Vibes, whatever. It's fine. Yeah.
It's a book by Holly Borne, which comes out in February of 2025. So depending on when this is released, it may be fresh off the press, or it might be ready for you to get immediately. It's called So Thrilled For You. And it is I would say a thriller, but not a typical thriller, that is set around a singular day of somebody's baby shower. 4 different point of views, each at a very different stage of life, but connected by this idea of motherhood, whether you are one, whether you are a new one, whether it is what you expected, or whether it is easily achieved, and what happens when your best friends are experiencing very different versions of that, culminating in an arson, a baby shower, everything gets set on fire. Who set the fire? Who started it? So really it's like a whodunit, but also and mainly it is about what happens when motherhood basically just turns you a bit crazy. Full stop.
That sounds good. I like the sound of that one. I don't know if I've ever read any Holly Borne. I know that you're a big fan.
I am.
I have one recommendation that I can relate back to Fourth Wing. However, I'm going to say the only link is dragons, right? It has dragons in it. And it is called A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, which I believe is a series of books, but I've only read the first one. And it's written as if it is the memoir of Lady Trent. And it reads more like a historical fiction novel than fantasy. So Lady Trent is considered to have brought her her fieldwork and her studies of dragons into the scientific limelight. So the book is almost like field entries of her trip to Vestrana to study dangerous dragons in the wild. I've taken this little snippet from the below, I think. Here at last, in her own words, is the true story of a pioneering spirit who risked her reputation, her prospects, and her fragile flesh and bone to satisfy her scientific curiosity of how she sought true love and happiness despite her lamentable eccentricities, and of her thrilling expedition to the perilous mountains of Vestrana, where she made the first of many historic discoveries that would change the world forever. And it has really beautiful illustrations of it, like anatomical illustrations of dragons. So it's a beautiful book. I really enjoyed it. I did mean to read the rest. I mean, I read this quite a long time ago now. I feel like maybe there's 5 or 6 in the series, but I don't remember dodgy sex scenes. I think if there's romance, it's very subtle. And yeah, it reads more like a historical fiction book than a fantasy book, even though obviously it is, because it's got dragons in it. So yeah, I would highly recommend that one. And get a physical copy because the pictures in it are beautiful. So yeah, that's two good recommendations for people to move on to after the thrills and spills of Fourth Wing. Well, thank you for coming on and chatting Fourth Wing with me. Do you know what? Sometimes it's nice to read a book like that is just, like you say, popcorn fiction. Lean into it, sink into it, and just enjoy it for what it is.
It's not that deep. The dragons are cool.
It's not that deep. Dragons are wankers. That, it'll be good fun when they make it for screen. I don't know what they'll do. It'll be interesting to see the angle they take. Yeah. I wonder if it's going to be a big film blockbuster, not even trilogy, 5 of them or however many books she's going to do. Yeah, it'll be interesting because with the books being very focused on the kind of, I guess, a sexual relationship between them, I don't think they'll be able to do that on screen. So it's yeah,
They'll be able to do it on some screens, but not the big one.
Yeah, maybe the paid for ones. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for coming on, Abby. Where can people find you if they would like to find you?
Probably Instagram. I believe I'm Abigail E. Mann on there. And I also have a Substack called Not a Write-Off, which is going out monthly, I would say, at the moment.
Yes, I love your Substack. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for listening. As always, there are loads of ways that you can get in contact with us with any questions, ideas, feedback, recommendations, ideas for future book club reads, any TikTok viral books you've spotted. You can email us on the bookcastclub@outlook.com or get in touch on Instagram where we're at Bookcast Club. You can sign up to our Substack for more reviews, new releases, podcast recommendations, and updates on the pod. We'd love it if you check out our Patreon. You can get a 7-day free trial, and our bonus content is now open to all our Patreons, so all different tier options give you access to our bonus content. And yeah, that's it for now. We will be back very soon.